Welcome, ladies and gentlemen. This is Austin here with StarCraft 2 commentary number 17. Today's episode will feature a PvP, and this is actually going to be a personal replay, which I have not casted one of these in quite a while. I believe it has been, not even gonna guess, as a lot of my predictions and guesses have been wrong. In the last episode, I said you would be seeing episode number 16 on Monday the 12th, when it was actually supposed to be Monday the 13th. You know, just dates wrong, numbers. Sometimes when you are a commentator, it becomes difficult to remember your dates and your numbers and your timings and your, even your build orders. It becomes difficult just to keep that all in mind when speaking, completely improvised. And so this replay, of course, is a PvP featuring myself, Austin, the blue Protoss spawning at the top right of Entombed Valley, pitted up against the brundlefly, the red Protoss spawning at the bottom right of the same map. And I did indeed ask my opponent his rank here. I was just doing so just to see against whom I was being pitted up. You know, when you are when you were progressing up the ladder of a certain league, it is interesting to be aware of who you're facing up against. And when I heard he was the top 16 silver, it does not necessarily intimidate me. It's just okay. I know where Blizzard's excellent matchmaking system is placing me in. So there we had it. I am a fan of asking opponents their ranks, and as you can see by our production tab, just the traditional gateway. Mine slightly outpacing my opponent's, though he is getting a slightly earlier assimilator. And so, as I may have mentioned in the past game, I have been playing quite an excess of replays, and quite an excess of games in the past few days. Not actually past few days anymore, so this is a Tuesday, the evening upon which I cast this. I'm quite exhausted from school, but hoping to find solace in a commentary. I apologize if the audio changed a little bit. I was bending down to pick up a fake coin, as I do cast my game standing up. I find it's a more active position. It allows me to speak even with my hands and move around, be a little more mobile. I've never been one for sitting down doing a commentary. The words flow out at a much slower rate, so both myself boasting a slightly earlier cybernetics core here, and brundlefly instead opting for the second gateway. So 4-gate early pressure has indeed recently ranked among my top strategies. Just the general feel of this kind of play is interesting to me. The gas timing, the chrono boosting, I apologize for that. Actually, several fans of mine have been kind of bugging me for saying it in excess, and hopefully I will be able to reduce that. And so brundlefly here hovering this probe around the edge of the map here. Do not jump off that cliff. How does it go again? It's the song by, I forget. Wish you would not jump off that ledge, my friend. I forget exactly how it goes, but I worshipped that song for a short period of time a few years back. It's actually bugging me now that I do not remember it off by hand. Anyway, back to our game. We have a chrono boosted warp gate tech on my cybernetics core, and a gateway forge and 4th gateway. So my opponent, instead having the cybernetics core, no chrono boost, but 2 gateways, just producing simple stalker sentry and this proxy pylon here. So it is an interesting strategy. If I were brundlefly, I would instead opt to place it here, as this blind spot is quite essential for proxy pyloning, which I have tried several times, especially in 2v2s on the bigger ramp areas. It is a lot easier to warp in zealots and inflict some punishment on your opponent's probe line or mineral line in general. And now brundlefly here has the robotics facility, so 3-gate robo, as I may have mentioned in some of my earlier replays. Excellent strategy against Protoss and Terran, especially orthodox builds like the 4-gate. So immediately upon this strategic movement from brundlefly, of which I used to be a huge fan, I've recently tried to, generalize. There's the again. Tried to generalize my build and allowing for a lot more late game transitions and flexibility. Nonetheless, I do have ground weapons level 1 researching, and a comparable level of units streaming out of my warp gates and my opponent's gateways. Of course, I may not have mentioned this so far. This is actually my second attempt at this commentary. Before, I had been experiencing an augmented level of lag, which frustrated me, so I decided to stop approximately 6 minutes in, the mark we have now reached. So that was, I believe, a scout probe or scout zealot. Did not notice that immediately. That quite a a sufficient early way to determine your opponent's build. Now, the Observer, of course, is the better option. Not sure why brundlefly would not wait for that. So he does have this third gateway finally in production. A little bit late considering the 3-gate robo build, and I do have 7 more population. Though brundlefly is in the midst of producing an Immortal, the counter to Stalkers, the absolute counter to Stalkers. And so I can tell you that my general strategy entering this game was the 730 early pressure. I hate to be kind of ruining it for you, but I am one, you know, again, jeez, I need to stop being conscious of it, or else I will continue to, say it more. And now my 730, well, approximately 8-minute push now arriving, as brundlefly making little use of this proxy pylon yet, but I'm sure when he sees this push, he will respond. That is what I would do. And no, I am not predicting the future, and I am not aware of what happened. I'm a little shaky on this replay. I did play it some 3, 4, or 5 days ago, so now these not the best micro from myself. These Stalkers rushing in first, sustaining some minor shields damage. So now the Zealots will rush in, this Immortal inflicting punishment. Though Immortals are not the greatest against Zealots. Having watched some lag TV today, I did realize that Charge Lots are essentially a powerful unit against Immortals, as these two will just decimate the Stalker line, and this 48 early pressure has proven to be futile for me, as 6 kills and 3 kills, 9 kills total. That is essentially the bulk of my attacking force, so we can surely expect some immediate response pressure here from brundlefly. A terribly microed Stalker losing his life here to my opponent's forces. So micro is among one of my greatest downfalls. brundlefly does have an Observer, so he can spot every one of my actions, though it was not an all-in. That is why I prefer 4-gate early pressure, as my opponent still leads only by 7 population, and this force could inflict some damage in response pressure, but a well-placed force field and upgraded Zealots, which my units are about to receive 1-1, my opponent's units are 0-0, can truly fend off against this somewhat small force, but he does have the proxy pylon to reinforce on the go. And a quick side note before we observe this battle: the intro you saw to this replay was made by Big Stash Games. That is Chris, a friend of mine who prides himself on his video editing skills. Himself and Matt, who produced Tuesday's intro, kind of competed, and I'm largely unaware as to who I should pick. So just please give me some feedback. I loved both entries, so I would absolutely appreciate any comments, or pretty much comments or private messages expressing which intro you preferred. For now, I will be using Matt's on Tuesdays and Chris's on Thursdays. Nonetheless, let us get back to our game here. A Twilight Council from myself and a Natural Expand attempted, while my opponent is finally building a 4th gateway. A little bit late for that, and I am building a 5th. No third upgrade in production here, which was actually, from my view, quite late in this game, as I normally have the shields, weapons, and armor quite early. So here is the pressure coming from brundlefly. Zealots running in to deal with the Immortals, but his force proves just too large, so I immediately run my forces back, warp in 4 more Zealots, and this cancel the natural, giving me those essential 300 minerals. These Zealots are moving in and inflicting punishment on the Immortals. Stalkers and sentries fending off from the high ground, and there is the force field. I have to say, I have not been the best user of force fields, and it was quite an exception this game. I was able to hold off that push quite efficiently, so my opponent did do a little bit of damage. I can only observe some 3 or 4 kills, and those were mostly Zealot kills, so the cancel natural, albeit giving me only 300 minerals back at a 400, just allowed me to warp in so many Zealots, and I finally transitioned now into, well, not finally, actually, this is quite early to transition into 2 more gateways, so that is a total of 7 warp gates. Even though I do not have a natural, I have a fully saturated main with 2 gas, and just attempting to look around for my opponent's doings as he flies this Observer in once more. So Observer Vision is excellent. I have to say, whenever I get a robotics facility, Observer Vision is just among my top priorities, as I am chrono boosting charge here, so you can expect charge lots in the near future, along with shields level 1, an Immortal and 2 Stalkers for my opponent, and a Natural Expand produced with the assimilator there. So the Immortals are streaming out of his robo, But again, as we have seen in countless games on my channel, upgrades are what my opponent is lacking in. He sees my force, he has this advantage, and I am attempting the natural once more, so this will surely have to be cancelled as my opponent pushes once more upon my force. Hopefully for me, charge will finish, but that is unforeseen as of yet. These zealots quickly falling to their adversaries, and a dark shrine in production from myself. So perhaps this bio counter, the Charge Rod Archon, which I had been doing quite a lot prior to this game. Charge Rod Archon had ranked among my top strategies against bio, though my opponent's build was largely not biological, so I assume I hoped for the lack of observer vision, but I can tell you that I cancelled this Dark Shrine here as I saw the faded outline of the observer, though my opponent did not see the Dark Shrine in the first place. I cancelled it nonetheless, figuring my opponent has no biological and it's just useless. So charge has finished, and as you can see here, Lag TV was 100% right, and I did not know they were Canadian, by the way, but I did realize by their use of R's, upgrades and something of this. I forget what else. Oh, charge lots. You know, the way they said charge. Nonetheless, this battle is proving largely successful for myself. Apologize for my lack of in-game coverage, but I just have to say I could tell Lag TV was Canadian. One of their hosts does say charge lots in the kind of Nova Scotian way, and I was able to decipher that. But it's pretty neat to have successful, you know, fellow Canadians that do not say, you know, as I just did for the umpteenth time. Nonetheless, I hate to be just critiquing my own verbalities. Yet my opponent has this reasonable force. As I opt to produce the natural, I like to micro probes around a little bit prior to producing a natural, as it just frustrates me to see them sitting about waiting for the 400 mineral. So now I am currently massing up my Charge Watch Stalker Sentry Force, and Charge Watch truly are the counter to Immortals. As you can see here, 1-1-1. The Immortal can do nothing to it, barely takes down any health. Charge Watch are extremely powered when it comes to the late game. As you can, it was Will Cheese Fails, I believe, Will Cheese Fail, one of those episodes, and it was just, I was immediately, this replay had already been played when I was watching, I had watched it earlier today, immediately I thought back, Charge Watts are incredible if used right. So as you can see here, I warp in for, I know I'm not covering my base pressure here, but I will actually watch this awesomeness in normal, not even to be arrogant. Let us just look at this insane Charge Watts surround, a Charge Watts sandwich. Upgraded 1-1-1 Charge Watch, just absolutely obliterating my opponent's force. And it does sound arrogant, but I have to say, I was almost not even hysterical. I was just completely drooling watching that happen. It was pure luck. It was not intended micro. A few Charge Watches had survived. My opponent opted to push into my base, and I warped in a few others, and it was just, I watched the Immortals. They could do nothing. So it was no fault to my opponents, almost sheer luck on my part. So now I am hunting down brundlefly's main base, reinforcing here with these zealots running faster than normal. I did not know that charge actually improved their general move speed until quite recently. Yet they do now have 2-1-1. So as I said, the upgrade's proving to be my opponent's downfall. He is building a nexus in the corner of the map. So brundlefly's population reaching low levels, and I did fail to mention this a little earlier, but a true problem is as well was his gateway production capabilities. He had 3 warp gates and 1 gateway for the longest time. I believe he did transform that last gateway into a warp gate towards the end. Yet, just the production my opponent did out-strategize me, and he had the advantage strategically, and I was aware of this, almost ready to GG. He held off the natural 3 times. It is still incomplete as I speak. And just, my opponent out-strategized me and held off the early pressure with ease. I made a number of mistakes, yet it was the transition on my part that proved to be my victorious edge. Well, perhaps not victorious yet. It is looking quite grim for my opponent here with just this mass of probes and 1 gateway and now a forge with just the nexus in the corner. So ultimately, what has led me to this point, at least I will say, has been my production of my transition, essentially. The Dark Shrine cancel. I cancelled it as I believe my opponent had observer vision of it, yet he did not. I cancelled it as my opponent had no bio. And the Dark Templar cheese would have worked for a short period of time had he not had any observer vision on his army. Yet he could have easily flown this young man or young individual over to the battle and just immediately eliminated my force. So here's the GG from brundlefly. So he is indeed a courteous player, and I can attest he was rank 16 silver and I was rank 18 bronze. So ultimately, the transition proved to be my saving grace, and the amazing charge lot sandwich did hold off against what could have been some potentially fatal pressure on my main. And so, just remember, ladies and gentlemen, as I do finish this game, you know, charge lots are excellent. Please, if you are a Protoss player and you need a counter to a Mortal Stalker and you have been out-strategized with your 4-gate, opt for the Twilight Council, get your upgrades on time, and you will be victorious as I was in this game. Thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen, for tuning into episode 17 of OST 77 SC's commentary series. I will see you in episode number 18. Have a great weekend. Goodbye.